Hey guys, what's up? It's Darkmech here from Big Dumb Gaming and welcome back to another Season 2 Mythic Plus guide. Today we're covering off Spires of Ascension, and the idea behind these videos is to get newer tanks moving into that plus 10 area, comfortable with the Tormented affix, going after that KSM achievement, and then if you're keen to push onwards to that plus 20 area to get those elusive dungeon portals, that's the idea behind these videos, to get you comfortable and to help get you up into those portals if that's what you're chasing. So we're going to do this the same way we did Sanguine Depths and the first season. We're going to cover off section by section in MDT. We're going to watch the video and talk about it, and yeah, we'll progress through the dungeon that way. I am trying to cut these down on time as I know they're long, so let's get straight into this one, and I'll try and get through this as succinctly, can't even say it, as I can. So first section in Spires of Ascension. This first platform area, 10 mobs in total. There's 4 Vanguards, 2 Menders, 1 Goliath, and 3 Castigators. And in our opening pool, we're going to go with a 7 pull, and then we're going to do the last 3 up the top. So mobs on this platform to be aware of: the Frostborn Vanguards, they do an auto attack that cleaves, so you want to always be facing them away from your group. The Frostborn Menders, they'll cast a thing called Frostborn Doctrine, which is a channeled heal for 10% of their max health. So if you do have the availability to kick and interrupt that, make sure you do. The Frostborn Castigators have 2 casts, Dark Lash and Burden of Knowledge. Now, Dark Lash is a bolt that is thrown out at a target and it wrecks people. It does hit quite hard. And Burden of Knowledge is a hefty magic dot that gets applied for 6 seconds. Now, what you generally want to do is make sure that you're kicking the Dark Lashes and then just have your healer dispel the Burden of Knowledge dot. The Goliath is the biggest focus point in this opening pool, and you can have a Shaman, if you've got one in your group, just sit this with their shorter interrupt and they can solo every kick on the Goliath. Otherwise, if you don't have that luxury, you're going to need to assign 2 melee kicks to rotate on the Rebellious Fist cast. Now, the cast sequence on the Goliath is always Rebellious Fist, and then Recharge Anima. Recharge Anima is an absorption shield, so generally just switch off him during that time when the shield is up, unless there's nothing else to hit, and then you can just pummel into the shield to get rid of it. Then we're going to cross over to the second platform. Now, you can either play, depending on your CDs, the Tormented mob first, or you can play the pack. Go around what your CDs are. If you have CDs, go and pull the pack first, and then do the Tormentor before the first boss. Otherwise, no CDs, do Tormentor first, and then pack. So, and that also, I will say, depends on whether or not it's Fortified or Tyrant. If you want CDs for the boss, obviously don't play the Tormentor and then use all your CDs on that pack and have nothing for the boss if it's Tyrant. The Tormentor mob here will either be Incinerator or Verruth. Now, Incinerator requires 2 melee time kicks on the cast Inferno. Don't let that get off. You also want to have one of your range players standing out at range while the rest of the group is stacked in to bait out the Scorching Blast cast, which are the large fire circles that go on the ground. If you don't have that luxury and you're all standing in melee, you're going to have to consistently keep moving the boss so you don't get melted by the fire patches on the ground that come out from Scorching Blast. Verruth is pretty nasty. He's probably the worst Tormented mob you'll face out of any of them. When engaged, he has an aura that reduces healing to all players by 50%. He'll cast Sever, which is a large physical damage swing, and it leaves an 8-second dot on the target. On top of this, he'll also cast an ability called Carnage, and this puts a large 5-yard red circle around the target. He'll then charge out to them and deal damage to anyone within that circle. What you can do is you want to move out when that happens, and when the charge goes off, if you've got the ability to meld, feign death, or vanish on any of those classes, you can avoid the damage that way. You can also ice block it when he goes to charge out as well, but it just depends on what class you're on and what luxuries you've got around that. Otherwise, you're just going to have to move out, deal with the damage in your healers. That's the healer's problem. In this next pack, we've got a 1 Goliath, 1 Mender, 2 Vanguards, and 1 Castigator. Now, you can CC the Mender on higher fort weeks if that makes life easy for you if you don't have as many kicks. The Mender will also cast Imbued Weapon. If you dispel this, the weapon will fall to the ground, your DPS can pick it up, and then you can take that weapon and you'll get extra arcane damage from the next 5 attacks that you deal, which is actually quite a decent boost to your damage. You can also do things like CC the Mender and then drag that into the boss if you wanted to, if you were comfortable with managing that, to dispel the weapon, pick up the weapon, and then use that into funneling the boss on extra damage as well. Now, the first boss, Kintara. So there's a beam that links Azul's, which is the serpent next to Kintara, and Kintara the boss, and it deals heavy damage to anybody that passes through that beam. You get a nasty magic dot that inflicts arcane damage every 1 second for 10 seconds to you. So tanks, you want to follow Kintara, so you want to follow Azul's around with Kintara, because Azul's will sort of just glide from side to side on the platform in different spots, and you'll have to run over so that beam isn't as pronounced. That way DPS don't have to worry about it, and they can also assist with cleave as they have a shared health pool. The Serpent Azul's will shoot out arcane missiles. You just need to try and position yourself behind the boss so you're not getting wrecked with that. At 100 energy, Kintara will cast an arse-reaming ability called Overhead Slash. It's a targeted ability now, so you don't have to worry about if it's cleaving anybody. It does hurt though, so make sure you've got your mitigation set up and your CD set up around that. Be monitoring Kintara's energy so when it hits 100, you know that's coming. That's pretty much it for this boss. There's actually nothing else that really goes on. So we're going to cover off the video now. This one's on my Blood DK. It's from quite a while ago, but it will still give you an idea, and nothing's really changed. So coming out into this opening 7 pull here, so I'm going to grab the Goliath from the stairs here, and then we're just going to position this up. Now we've got the kick on the Rebellious Fist. So Katern is a shaman here, so he is sitting every single Rebellious Fist we've got there. And then we're just going to try and kick all the other Dark Lashes that we can. Again, making sure that you are facing the mobs away from your group, as there is that cleave. You can kind of see that cleave sort of going out on me there. If you can kind of see the black splashes that come up there, you just want to make sure that they're not hitting into your group. Otherwise, people, on high fort keys can absolutely get wrecked by them. So we get through that quite quickly. Again, the biggest thing is just making sure those Rebellious Fists don't go off. If Rebellious Fist does go off, you are probably going to wipe or go really close unless you've got big defensives if you missed one. Again, making sure I'm facing the Vanguards away from my group here, or at least trying to. We're dispelling the Mender's weapon and having people pick them up to get the extra damage from that. And that's pretty much it, guys. So there's nothing really special on these, so we'll just skip over this because we're trying to make this as quick as we possibly can. So we're flying over to the other side here, and then we've got Incinerator here. Remember, this is going to be either Incinerator or Verruth. So we are going to play the pack first, as we've probably got some form of CDs here. So we're going to play the pack first, then we're going to do the Tormentor, and then we're on to the boss. And remember, I can't stress as you get higher and higher in keys how important it is around playing around your CDs. It is really important to be planning out your CDs in regards to what you're going to do for your packs. And it just gets more and more important understanding that as you get higher. And when you don't have CDs, it's generally not worth risking it in large pools if you don't have CDs. So as the tank, you need to be really vocal about that as well, especially if you don't have anything to survive. Making sure you're facing these mobs away again. There's nothing different in these packs that we haven't seen in the opening round. So you can see that for that Doctrine going off there. Remember, that's a 10% heal each tick to that mob. So generally, if you can kick it, if you can asphyxiate it, stun it, leg sweeps, ring of pieces, anything that you can do to get that cast off, you do want to make sure you're doing that, but not at the expense of making sure that you're not you're missing any of those Dark Lash kicks or the Rebellious Fist on the Goliath. So you can see the Goliath here, it's left up. The Goliath doesn't really do anything outside of the Rebellious Fist. It doesn't hit overly hard or anything like that where it's a huge issue. So we're just going to drag the Goliath into the Incinerator mob here, just making sure we have the kicks, and then that's pretty much it. There's that Scorching Blast cast, the fire circle I'm talking about. So here's our Inferno. So we've got 2 kicks rotating on the Infernal because Cat is still sitting the Goliath as the shaman. So Sail and myself are sitting the Inferno cast, and then Shimon the Boomkin is baiting out those fire blasts. So you can see he's actually up the top of the screen here. So we're all stacked in, the range player out at range here, and that means that all those fire circles are going out here. We don't have to worry about moving. We can just stand there and DPS. So getting through this part here, because there's nothing much going on here. And then we're in to the first boss, Guintara. Now you can see as soon as you pull Guintara, Azul's will generally either go here or here to start off with. But again, find out where it goes and just make sure that you position yourself behind Azul's. You can see these arcane missiles shooting out here. They're the missiles the Serpent will shoot out. Here is this beam as well that you want to make sure that you're avoiding standing in. And again, Kintara, the energy, you can see here, the energy builds up quite quick. We've already had like 2 or 3 slams. Here comes another overhead slash. So just make sure that you're aware of when that overhead slash is coming, especially if Azul's is moving and you're running after it, because Kintara will continue to chase you and do that overhead slash. So if you cop it in the back on Tyran, there's every chance that you will probably die. You generally can die taking one to the face, taking one to the back on a high enough level will certainly see you die. So you just need to be aware of that. Otherwise, just following these around, this is pretty much the whole rinse repeat of the fight. Remember, we want to keep them close together. They share a health pool, so the more cleave that you can get into them, the better. But you can see how much damage that overhead slice does, or overhead slash. So as I was running across, it hit 100 energy. I kind of had to turn around and make sure that I took it to the face with mitigation versus taking it to the back. So just be aware of that. If you get a charged spear on you as well, that I forgot to mention when we were going over the MDT, charged spear, you need to run that out to make sure that you're not planting it in the group. You can see the charged spears here. Here they are here. So when you get targeted, if you ever get targeted with one, try and run it over to a wall so it's well out of the way. All right, so that is the first boss. There's nothing else really to report on that whatsoever. That's the first boss, and then we're going to go into our next section. So, all right, so we're going left here, and we're going to double pull these mobs. You can actually double pull or single pull. This all depends on the fixes for the week, if it's fort, if it's Tyran, if you've got CDs. If it's fort and you don't have any CDs, I would absolutely recommend not double pulling. And line of sighting here is really important if you are going for a double pull. If you're going to single pull, I would elect just running over and killing this pack first where it stands, and then line of sighting the next pack, which is the 3 skirmishes. But otherwise, if you are double pulling, you do want to make sure that you line of sight to have them all come back. Otherwise, the skirmishes will kill everyone with the hurls that they'll throw out. So there's nothing really too much to say about these packs. Line of sighting is really important, and then you want them as the tank. Make sure that you remain in range of the skirmishes so they don't hurl people to death, and that's pretty much it. They'll leap out. If someone leaps out, your group needs to line of sight so they drag back in to melee range, so your tank can stand within range so they're not getting absolutely wrecked. So once we've done that pack, we're going to move over to the right side, and then we're going to do the 6 Stealth Claws and the 1 Praetor. Now, the Stealth Claws have a nasty bleed on them. Around 5 stacks, you want to think about getting out of town unless you've got some way to deal with the debuff, you know, a Kyrian Vial, a Bubble Taunt or something like that on a Paladin. If you've got a Paladin in your group as well, you can get them to bop you and you can run and gather up all the Stealth Claws. The Stealth Claws will stun you if they end up hitting you before you break them out of stealth. So just be aware of that. If you're on a DK and you get stunned, you probably want to Icebound Fortitude fairly quickly on a high enough level. Otherwise, it will wreck you. But as I said, if you've got a Paladin in your group, make sure you're making the most of that bop. Run and aggro them all up. The Praetor, when you drag that in, will cast an ability called Dark Seeker. It's a bolt of arcane damage. It'll also cast Swift Slice, which is a charge forward, which moves it out of the way, and you just want to try and continually drag those Stealth Claws onto that Praetor so it is going down at the same time. And then you just want to make sure, as I said, you're managing the bleed with the Stealth Claws. The next platform, when we move over, there's going to be 2 Goliaths. So there's going to be 4 kicks that need to be managed there. If you've got 2 Shamans in your group, you could have a Shaman sit each. Otherwise, if you've got 1 Shaman, have it sit a Goliath, put 2 melee kicks on the other one. Otherwise, you just need to make sure you rotate your kicks. If you don't have enough kicks, you're going to have to try and burn one down ASAP to avoid getting exploded. This is a fairly dangerous pull. The Praetors, we've already covered the Stealth Claws. It's going to have the Bleed and the Ether Divers. They're a new mob that you wouldn't have encountered yet. They cast Insidious Venom. Just kick what you can. It's a dot that stacks. Your healer can also dispel them, and you can use AMS to immune some of the casts on you as well if you are a DK in that situation. So you've got a fair bit of variance around this. Generally, will generally see the first 3 pulled by themselves, and then you'll see a double pull with the 2 Goliaths. And the Praetor into the Ether Diver and the other Praetor. Otherwise, you can double pull off the bat if you had CD straight away with the Praetor, Stealth Claw, Ether Diver, the 2 Goliaths, and the Praetor. You could double pull that and then single pull. Either way, you can play all 3 single as well. On Sanguine weeks, it generally pays to just play them single. because that way you don't have to worry about the Goliath doing a recharge Anima in Sanguine if you weren't great at managing that. But just manage that around your CDs. There's also a Kyrian Spear off to the right after the group 13. Make sure if you've got a Kyrian in your group that they are picking that up, as that spear comes in real handy on larger pools as we get further into the dungeon on the next platform. So once we're done with that, we're going to go over the platform and we're going to go into the next area. This next area in total is going to have 8 Aether Divers, 1 Skirmisher, 1 Champion, 2 Praetors, 1 Goliath, and 1 Inquisitor, and a squad leader that you would deal with while you're going over here. And that Kyrian Spear that we just picked up before, if you have a Kyrian in your group, we're going to use it on a double pull when we get to the top of the stairs. Now, covering off these mobs, the champions are the same as Menders. They both cast the Frostworn Doctrine, which is a heal, so make sure you're kicking that when you've got the ability to do so. They'll cast the Infused Weapon, so remember, we're dispelling that. We're picking up the weapon from the ground. We're getting an extra damage from our 5 auto attacks, so make sure you're making the most of that. The Frostworn Skirmishers will hurl a spear, so make sure, again, as the tank, that you are in melee range to avoid that hurl. The Inquisitor will cast Dark Lash, again, same as the Castigator, so make sure that you're kicking that. They'll also cast an Infernal Strike, which marks a location on the ground, and they will move to it and jump to it. Just move out of the way. Lastly, the squad leader will have a thing called Inspiring Presence on them, which causes nearby allies to take 30% less damage from the area of effect attacks. So basically, you don't want to pull the squad leader in with anything else, otherwise you'll be doing 30% damage, 30% less damage to everything that is stacked on top of it, basically. So what we're going to do when we come over here is we're going to fight this pack on the bottom of the stairs. So we're going to do the champion, the skirmisher, and the 2 Aether Divers down the bottom. There's a little pillar over here that you can line of sight on. I'll show you on the video. And then we're going to go up and we're going to do this Goliath, Inquisitor, Praetor, Aether Diver in with the other Aether Divers. And we're going to use the spear on that to melt them down. So it's a double pull. We spear it. You blow hero if it's a fortified weak. Use your CDs and you absolutely nuke it down. And then we're going to play the Praetor and the squad leader by themselves, which is a little bit unideal just to fight 2 mobs, but it is just the easiest pathing through this dungeon to go with. Then we're going to go over to the next platform area. Okay, so which is just before the next boss. So we're moving over to the next platform. Now this is quite a large pack that you want to use CC on. So there's a squad leader in here, an Aether Diver, a champion, an Inquisitor, and a Praetor. So CC whatever you can in this pack. Generally CCing the champion, which removes a heal to kick, is ideal. And then anything else you can imprison, CC like the Inquisitor or the Aether Diver, it just means less to deal with. What you're going to do is you're going to pull the squad leader out of the pack first, and then with whatever else you can't CC, and you want to kill the squad leader ASAP. Once the squad leader's dead, then you can pull the rest in. The reason being, again, you don't want to just fight it all at once, is that the squad leader will be reducing AoE by 30% to all the nearby enemies that are within its range, and it's just a waste. So pull the squad leader out, nuke that down, and then do the rest of the pack. You'll get more value out of your CDs that way. There is a tormented mob on the back side of this boss here. We're actually going to elect to skip that, and then just go straight into the boss. Now, the tormented mob will either be Cold Heart or Sogadon. Now, Cold Heart just means when you skip it, when you go to the final boss, that you will have the 50% reduced movement speed. But everything else still works in terms of like dash, stampeding roar, death's advance, rolls, and all that on among. So if you've got mobile classes, Fell Rush, Infernal Strike, all that kind of stuff, if you've got the ability, if you've got mobile classes, you're not really going to have too many issues with that on the last boss. So skipping Cold Heart generally isn't a huge issue. Skipping Sogadon just means the boss will deal larger physical damage. And again, if you're able to cope with that, it's not really a huge issue. So we always generally elect to skip the tormented mob that is positioned here. Now, we haven't covered off those 2 mobs yet, so just giving you a quick rundown on them. Cold Heart, when engaged, will put out an aura called Chilling Present. It reduces your movement speed by 50%, as I just said, and you'll carry that through if you skip it onto the boss. Now, Cold Heart will cast Biting Cold on someone, which will put a large ice circle around them. Stay away from them, and if you're the person with the large ice circle, don't run it over your friends. Cold Heart will also cast a large frontal cone attack called Frost Lance. Just don't stand in it and get hit by it. And the other thing you'll need to watch out is he'll do an ability called Cold Snap. For 5 seconds, it'll spawn little ice circles on the ground. Just don't stand in them. Sogadon, on the other hand, the big Coke can, he will pull you in at range if you pull him from afar and you're not line of sight. So just be aware of that. If you go to pull him and try and get him to move back to you, he will actually pull you into him, and he'll do an ability called Crush, which will hit you for a fairly large physical damage. Or it's a large physical damage ability, sorry, so just be aware of that with mitigation. He'll also have an aura around him that causes you to take 50% increased physical damage, which is called Intimidation. So be aware of that too. You're going to get hit quite hard, especially if you're dragging things into Sogadon in other dungeons. And lastly, he will grip everyone in, he will chain them to the ground, and he will cast a giant smash. Break your chains. If you're a druid, you can just shapeshift out of it as well, and move out of the large smash. So that is how you deal with those tormentors, depending which one it is. If you're not comfortable with skipping it, feel free to play it as well. So then we're into the second boss, Ventinax. So you're going to tank him on the edge of the circle facing outwards. He'll cast an ability called Dark Stride, where he'll dash off to someone. He'll leave a shadow whirl behind that shoots out little missiles. What we're going to do is we're going to stack 2 of these Dark Strides rather close to each other. And then on the second one, we're going to move basically a quarter of the way around the clock face. So if we're starting at 12 here, just for example, we're going to drop 2 Dark Strides close to each other, and then we're going to move to 3 basically. So we're going to just move a quarter of the way around, and then we're going to drop the next 2 there, and then we're going to move back to our original position, and we're just going to go back and forth like that. The reason being is it makes the range that are standing in the middle, it gives them a designated spot where the missiles are going to be coming out from the Dark Stride, which is the pool that he leaves, and it makes it easier for them to dodge. So that's what we're going to do with this one. He'll also cast a frontal ability called Blinding Flash. It's just a frontal. Just make sure you move out of that. Just step to the side. And that's about it. I'll explain that a little bit better once we're going through it. Going back to the video here. So see this green marker that's just been put down here as I go back? Oh, God. See this green? Okay, I've gone too far. Hold on. Head back, Turbo. Head back, champ. Okay, green marker right here, right? Sorry about the quality in this video. This spot here is where you want a line of sight. I'm pretty sure I screw this up and come down to here, which is where a lot of people were originally doing it. Here, stand in this corner here. It makes life much easier to grip everything up, okay? So in future, green marker, that's where you want to go for your line of sight point. Now, I am going to pull 2 of these. I'm not sure if this is the one where I die before I get back. Nah, I got back. All right, so I'm a champ. So I should have gone to green, came down the bottom, not where you want to go, not where you want to be. If everyone's line of sight, it will still work. It's not where you want to be though. Now, we're lucky because we have 2 Necrolord DKs in here with A-bomb limbs, so it grips everything up, but it's not what you want to do. Now, you can see the hurls are going off, and it's because I am here, and this one up here is not classed as in within melee range, so a hurl was going off. Make sure as the tank that you are standing within melee range, as those hurls will absolutely own people on fortified weeks. So just make sure as the tank that you are consistently, see I'm too far back here and these hurls are going off and wrecking people because I'm worried about enrage. Stay within melee range. This is really bad too. So I don't want to go in there because I'm like they're enraged, and I didn't know this at the time when I was doing it. So those enraged hurls are just going off on random people. Better off as the tank to be eating the enraged hurls rather than your group doing it. Now, if they spread out like this as well, you can have your whole group line of sight to clump them back up. But as the tank, stay within melee range. Otherwise, they'll just continually cast hurl on random people. So left side done. Now we're moving on to this right side, which had the stealth claws and the praetor. So just wanted to, there's always 2 over at this wall. I was going to go and drop a D&D there. I could have done it from miles away, but anyway, I got stunned. It's not fought, so it's not too bad. I'm going to grab in this praetor here. I got stunned again as well because we didn't get the other ones out. So with the stealth claws here as well, try and kite around this area up here as well. If you've got slows and things like that, don't run back into that first boss area, because with the stairs and that, you'll play funny line of sight games with your ranged, and you don't want to do that. It just makes them lose DPS. So try and stay up here if you can, and just try and keep them clumped up. You can see the Praetor casting the Dark Seeker and the Swift Slice. Again, just make sure you're trying to keep these mobs on top of the Praetor to keep damage going in here. You can see how much damage they deal quite quickly as well, so just be really aware of that. In regards to just keep moving. You don't really need to stand in there the whole time. You can just, if you've got slows, keep kiting them around in the circle, and your group can just sort of keep melting them down. There's no real reason for you to be in there eating the claws debuffs from the stealth claws there. All right, so we're going to take a winged champion over here. So now this is where we're either setting up for the single pull, double pull. As I said, depends on what cooldowns you've got available and you know what your group wants to do. So we're going to pull the single here, and then I believe we're going to double. Again, play around your cooldowns, play around your fixes. Again, Stealth Claw getting the dot. The Either Diver is going to be casting out the Insidious Venom, which is the dot that stacks. You can AMS applications of that. Your healer can dispel it. Otherwise, just kick them. Praetor will be charging off. Again, try and keep that Praetor in with the mob, so nothing really too special to cover off with them. And then we're going to move in to the double pull here. Now again, making sure that you have your kicks assigned on the 2 Goliaths is the most important thing. Remember, fist, anima recharge. So if there's a bad pat as well, which we had here, all you basically want to do is just start on this pack, and then when the other one comes in, just drag it in. You know, again, if you're on a DK here, making sure that when you are going into that pack that you've got runic power is really important. You know, each tank brings with it sort of different strategies, I suppose, for doing these large pulls. On a druid, obviously, you're consistently pulling around when Incarn is up. You're not doing big pulls without Incarn generally, as it's too hard to hold threat and things like that. As a DK, make sure that you're trying to save runic power going in to larger pulls from pack to pack, that you're trying to keep your bone shield charges refreshed and things like that, so you've got the ability to cope with these pulls. So we had a really bad pat as they were up the end. Rather than waiting for them to just group them up, we started on the pack when the Either Divers came padding back with their Praetor. We pulled them in and we went from there. Again, there's no real big issues on this pack, aside from the fact that you just need to make sure that you are kicking the Goliath casts. The biggest, the most important fact is just making sure that you're kicking those Goliath packs, and then trying to keep everything on top of the Praetors, which will continue to make your life hell as a tank by charging out. And that is pretty much it. So we're getting through that pack. No worries at all. Spear. Kyrian players, here's the spear that you're going to run past. Make sure that you are picking this up if you have a Kyrian in your group, because it will allow you to throw, stun, and everything will take extra damage while it is in it, which is absolutely what we want to be making the most of. So we're taking our winged champions and we're going over to this next level. We're going to do this pack at the bottom of the stairs here just by itself. See, there's a little point here if you run and stand on this corner, which will actually line of sight these, because some of these, again with the skirmishers, they'll jump out, they'll cast a hurl as well. You can see it going out there. If that happens and it goes up the top of the stairs and you don't want to pull the padding mobs, line of sight around one of those pillars that I just pointed out to as we were coming up, it'll cause it to run back down, which is absolutely what you want to do rather than ninja pulling anything. So we're getting through this, no real issues with that one, that's pretty normal. And then we're going to go and set up for our double spear pull up the top here. So Either Divers are at the top. So what we're just going to do is wait for them to pat back, wait for these to pat forward, and then we're going to grab all of this at the same time here, and we're going to spear. That was an okay D&D. I thought I was about to drop D&D and then not pull them into the D&D, which would have been highly embarrassing. So we are... Oh no, we didn't even have a Kyrian in our group at the time here. So normally we would have a Kyrian because Katurn went Kyrian recently. So we didn't have one when I recorded this, so we just did this with no spear. This is where you would throw the spear, okay? So if you've got a Kyrian in your group, this is where you would throw the spear when you group them up, and you would nuke them down, and it will make your life easier. This was Tyran, so that the trash isn't overly dangerous, so you can get away with a lot more, but that's your spear location, okay? All that's left up here is the Goliath. So again, just making sure that we get the kicks off. We're going to res Sail, and then we're going to go and fight these two now. I hate fighting these two. You can skip them and do a pack later on, but it is more dangerous. This is quite simple. It's the most basic way in the route, so it's just generally what we do because we don't need to do anything else at key level at the moment to make it work. And I think it's the safest thing to do for pug groups and things like that as well. With the squad leader, large frontal, just make sure that you're not standing in that. Otherwise, just burning down the squad leader as quick as you can. Try and keep the Praetor and it stacked, even though you're losing 30% AoE. You want to try and get it down as quickly as you can. Clicking our little winged champion over here, and we're coming over to the side. Remember, we want to CC whatever we can here generally. we actually really didn't have many options aside from Hex and a Hibernate on the Ether Diver, and it's not fortified, so we just YOLO'd and went into this with the squad leader. There's that Crushing Strike, the large frontal. Make sure you're not pointing it at the group. Make sure you move out of the way. Kicking what we can in regards to the Dark Slashes and the Doctor, and you can see that Venom dot comes out there. It can just be dispelled though, so probably not worth channeling kicks into. There's plenty of other things to kick here. That Inquisitor up the top as well with the Dark Lash going off. Just try and grip that in if you've got the ability to do that, especially if you're a DK, obviously, rather than let it sit out there and cast. Infernal Strike doesn't really need to be kicked either. It just marks a spot on the ground where it's going to go. You're much better off kicking these Dark Lashes here. And that's pretty much it on that pack. You shouldn't have too many issues, but CC absolutely makes it safer. So once that is dead, you can see Cold Heart is up the back there. We're going to skip that and we're just going to go straight into Ventinax here. So here's where I'm starting with the boss. I've got it facing out. Range generally will just move into the middle of the arena here. We've got a Dark Stride that's coming out. He's going to blink off to someone and then he's going to come back. Now I am just going to position, here's the Blinding Flash. So it's just a straight line frontal. So just moving out of the way of it. I'm going to put these two Dark Strides quite close to each other. Now, it does make your melee player have to stay on their toes because they're quite close to that little void pool. But out comes the second Dark Stride. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to move him all the way up the front here. As I said, around a quarter of a way around the clock. I haven't quite gone that far because I've got a Blinding Flash that's come out. But I'm going to move him up the top here. He's going to do a recharge, which is just free DPS time. Now, the reason I did this, I'm just going to pause this. The reason I did this, here's the two Dark Stride pools, right? If one drops and then you move the next one over to here, the second Dark Stride, it means that you've got 2 points where all this crap is coming out of for your range that are in the middle dodging. If you've put two Dark Strides beside each other here, they have one localized point where all this crap is coming out of that they have to dodge in the middle. It makes their life way easier. So that's why I do that. So that's all shooting out from the 1 point. Try not to get hit as it will absolutely wreck you. And here comes the next one. So I'm going to drop the next one here. Now, you can either drop the next one here and go back to your starting position, or you can just keep, moving around the circle. Just watch the tormented mob at the back. That's the biggest thing that you don't want to pull. There's also a pack off to the right that you don't want to pull, but you have to go a fair way to actually pull them. So next Dark Stride coming, and I'm just going to move over to the other side of this one here, to the other quarter, or the other little quadrant bit. Blinding Flash going off, stepping off to the side. And that's it, guys. That is how you do that, boss. It's nice and clean. It makes it a lot easier on your range, dumping the two Dark Strides on each other. Absolutely recommend you getting comfortable with that and doing that. So I'm going to kill that boss. No worries. Pew, 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 pew. And then we're going to catch the little angel, which if you stand in the middle and jump, it'll catch you and it'll fly you over to the next platform. So moving on to the next platform here. So we have covered off Ventinax. We're landing over on this next platform. There is a spear off to the right. If you've got a Kyrian player in your group, make sure they go and pick that one up. Now, we're going to do a Helion, and the third Tormentor will be here as well. Now, the third Tormentor is either going to be Incinerator or Verruth, and we've spoke about how you deal with them. Now, depending on comfort level, you can pull the Tormentor in with the Helion, or you can do the Helion and then the Tormentor after that. Personally, generally like pulling them together. It is scarier when it is Verruth, and the stairs can give you some LOS issues with your healer, so just make sure that you're aware of that and playing around that. The Helion is always the most important mob though. The Helion pulses arcane damage every 3 seconds while it's alive, and it ramps. So what you want to do is you want to focus the Helion down ASAP and cleave the Tormentor down. If it's Incinerator, you've only got 2 kicks to manage and you'll have a range player out baiting the Scorching Blast, so it's not a problem. If it's Verruth, kill the Helion really quickly, as Verruth is a dick. Okay, so we're going to kill those two, then we're going to sneak around the side. You don't need a rogue or anything for this. Next up, then we're going to either, when you get to the top, you can either, if you've got a priest in your group, you can Mind Soothe and run around. If you've got a druid, they can prowl up, get on stag form or a double-seated mount, and you can jump up the mount on the wall. If you've got a rogue, you can shroud through. Otherwise, you can invis pot through. Figure out whatever you're going to do. That's what you want to do. We're going to skip the tormented mob here as well, which will either be Sogadon or Coldheart. We've spoken about how to deal with them and what happens when you skip them as well, so we're always skipping that. And then we're going to pull these non-elite usurpers. We're going to line of sight them around the pillar, and we're going to nuke them down. If you've just gotten around the first bit and you haven't elected to invis pot or anything like that, you had a druid go around, for example, and you jumped up the wall, or you Door of Shadows up the wall, or whatever you did. If you move over to the side and you're going to run through as the tank, make sure your group all hangs back until you've got those usurpers line of sight around the pole. Otherwise, if people run with you as a tank, they'll stop, they'll hurl cast, and they'll kill people. Then we're on to the third boss, Orphy Ron. I think that's how you say it. Two things on this boss. One is the charge stomp. It hurts if you trigger it. It's a large magic damage hit on the stomp, and then it leaves a 12-second dot after it. You can AMS to avoid the debuff application, but it will only, that charge stomp will only trigger off when you move into the boss's red hitbox. If you move under that, you will trigger a charge stomp and you will waste some of his energy, which is generally what you want to do on the second round to push him into his little other phase. The second thing is Imperial Ordnance. Now, you want to have a set point for your group to run and drop these. These are the orbs that we'll leave behind. You'll get a blue arrow on your head. You want to have a spot dedicated for your group to run and drop them and then move them away. It will just make, when the boss goes into its second phase, orbs come out of this and travel towards the boss, and you want to soak them if you can. Well, actually, you have to soak them. And you want to have an easy point to do that. So if all the orbs have been dropped in the one place, it makes a nice straight line for the orbs traveling to the boss. Means that, people with AMS, AMZ, Zen Med, Turtle, Ice Block, Cloak can soak those orbs really easily without losing too much uptime on the boss. Okay, so that is pretty much it. We're going to be 88.8% before we go up to the top after this boss. So we'll watch the video and we'll cover that off. So we're moving over to the next platform now. Okay, so we're landing here. So you can see the Helion in front of us. Here's the spear over here for your Kyrian player in the group to go and pick up if you've got one. So we're going to play the Helion here, and then it's Verruth. Now, I don't know. This is a while ago. I don't think we played Verruth in with this. No, we were clearly quite sandy at the time and didn't do it. So we're just playing the Helion first. Are we going to drag Verruth in? Now we're dragging Verruth in. So it was a bit of a, obviously we were talking about it at the time and talking about whether or not we would have the cojones to do it. And then we decided that we did. So just melting the Helion down. Here's Wave of Terror, which is the fear. Just need to make sure that you're stacking with somebody to avoid getting feared on that. Otherwise, you can put a Tremor Totem down if you get in trouble. And then we're just nuking Verruth down. Now you can see Sever coming in here. It's about a 30% melee hit there, and then the dot ticking after for the 8 seconds. So Verruth is really horrible, especially as a Blood DK. You've got that aura, which is 50% less healing to all party members in your group. It includes functioning off your Death Strike as well, your healing. Which, it's quite rough. It's a really rough mob. There's that Carnage on Gilly there, just making sure you run that red circle out, and that is pretty much it. So Verruth is down, the Helion's down, then we are going to get our powers and we are going to run around the outside here. So again, as I said, you don't need a shroud or anything like that here. Mount up, run around the outside. We're going to skip all this. And then we're going to get to the top. And as I mentioned, if you've got a priest in your group, you can mind soothe this mob up the top here. And then you can just actually run around. So we mind soothe those. And then we can just run around here. Or you can get on a druid, can double mount, get up that wall, whatever you're going to do. Move over to this next point here. Now, as I said, as the tank, if you're going to run through, make sure you run through these first. Get line of sight around here and then have the rest of your group. So you can see my group all stood up the top there and waited. They've waited for all these usurpers to come and get line of sight, which means that they're not getting hurled, which means that they're not getting dead. If you run with your tank, you will die. So just make sure you hang back and wait with that. That way we haven't had to use an invis pot or anything like that to get through that section, which means everyone still has their pots for use. So we're going to kill these usurpers. They'll hurl again. If it's sanguine, you can use this pillar just to line of sight and kite them around. And then we've got CD, so we're going straight into the boss. Now, we're going to try and dump our orbs in a straight line and pretty much take the boss from here to the back wall. So you can see the red hitbox. If you move inside this red hitbox, you will trigger a charge stomp, which, as I said, is fairly nasty. So we're going to drop our first ones at the purple marker. So Ordnance is coming right now. You can see Imperial Ordnance moving here with our blue little triangles above our head. Our arrows above our head, we drop all the orbs there, and then I'm going to move the boss back, and then we're going to drop our next ones just in front of this, and then I'm going to move the boss back to the wall. What that means is when those orbs come, we have a nice straight line for those soaks to go off, makes soaking those orbs really easy, which is exactly what we want to do. So next ordnance is incoming after this purifying blast, and we're going to drop them right on purple there. So Imperial Ordnance going to purple, nice, and then we're just going to move to the back wall now as the tank. Now, what we're going to do is he's on 15% energy. When he reaches 0% energy, the boss is going to go into its burn phase, basically, which is the same as like Witherbark was in Everbloom, where it's taking extra damage and where you want to absolutely be melting it. So we're trying to get the boss as low as we can. If you want to trigger that phase off quicker as the tank, you can move into the red circle like I'm about to do now to trigger off a charge stomp. What that means is it wastes energy. It goes into its recharge anima phase where it's taking more damage. Now, this is where the orbs are going to come out and start moving towards the boss. So I'm going to AMS and I'm just going to soak as many of these as I can until the cap runs out. And then the rest of them are going to come in and I'm going to drop AMZ and I'm just going to stand in my little bubble and I'm going to soak the rest of them, making sure none of the orbs get back to the boss. It leaves a ticking dot on you, that anima surge. So just be aware of that. As a druid, generally you obviously don't have a lot of magic damage options. You can pop Incarn and just thrash your way to a shield to live through them. Brewmasters, Zen meditation. As I said, hunters with turtle can do it. Mages with ice blocks. Rogues with Cloak of Shadows. So we're up this end, we're going to drop our next ordnance there, and then we're just going to move back to where we basically started with the boss. So I just do this boss in a straight line up and down. Makes it nice and easy, just as long as people are dropping their pools in the front. And that's pretty much it on that boss, guys. So you shouldn't have too many issues. We're going to kill that boss. And then we're going to pull the last side of usurpers. So remember, you need both sides of usurpers before you go up. Pulling them, line of sighting here with the whole group so no one's getting hurled to death. They'll all run in, just make sure everyone stays in line of sight. We want to be, as I said, 88.8% before we take the winged champions up. So killing these usurpers nice and quickly, and then we're flying up and you can see we're 88.77%, so we're perfect on percent there. Then we're going up onto the top platform. So back to the MDT, to the top platform. There is 3 mini bosses up here: Astronos, Lexius, and Clothos. Choices here, basically you can elect to do Astronos and then Lexius and always Clothos last, or you can do Lexius and then Astronos and then Clothos. It honestly just depends what you want to do. The reason is that when you kill one, the wolf from each one, their special ability is transferred to the other one. So by the time you end up fighting Clothos, you're dealing with all 3 of them. We're going to kill the middle one first, which is Lexius. It is an ability called Crescendo. It's multiple split direction attack, goes off in 3 prongs. Just move. He also has oppression, so the longer he lives, the more damage you take. So kill it quickly. Second target up here is Astronos. He has the charged spear, so he'll throw a spear out that then pulses out Crescendo. So you just need to watch for the lines coming out of the spear. So just be aware of them. And then the third target or third kill target is going to be Clothos. Now, this is where you would, on fortified weeks, use hero, and it was where you will use your second spear that you picked up when we came across after the second boss, Ventinax. So, Clothos has an ability called Diminuendo, something like that. It's a leap and a smash ability. It also is a knockback, so just watch out for where he's leaping to and don't stand in the bad stuff. This will be combined with oppression as well, which you get from killing Lexius, which goes on to Clothos as well. So the longer he's alive, the more damage is ramping up by that dot. As I said, spear, all your cooldowns here, you want to melt this as quick as you can. Clothos has an aura that goes out from him as well, called the which is oppression, which, as I said, ramps up the longer he's alive. You can meld the dot off, you can feign death it off and vanish it off as well, I'm pretty sure. And I don't think Ice Block works for that. It might, I'm not sure. But anything you can do to drop that oppression dot is absolutely well worth it. Otherwise, just watch the spears and burn him down as quick as you can. Then you're on to the last boss, Devos. Now, honestly, Devos is pretty simple. Does a run through, move out of the charge, puts a big bubble on the ground, make sure you stand in it. When abyssal detonation goes off, make sure you're in the bubble. Otherwise, Devos will fly into the sky, return the orbs, go back, throw the spear, rinse, repeat. All right, let's look at the video. So We've killed Orphy Ron. We're going up to the top. So you can see Lexius is the middle one here. We're going to elect to pull that one first. And are we doing a double here? No, we're doing a double. Okay, so if you're electing to do a double pull here, what you want to do is kill them at the same time. Okay, so here's Dominant Innuendo coming off from Lexius, which is that frontal. You don't want to stand in it. And you can also see Oppression, which is that dot that stacks up. We're at 6 stacks now, so 6% extra damage, 7% extra damage. It just continues to ramp the longer that these are alive. So you want to be killing them as quick as you possibly can. Here's the charged spear that comes out. There's the charged spear there. So there's going to be these little dominant innuendos that shoot out of that as well in the lines. And it's really hard to see here with the tree ends up, but I am in a really bad spot. Basically, there's 4 prongs on these spears. I don't think the video quality is good enough to be able to show you. See the spear here? There's going to be 4 prongs that come out, and it comes out from each of the lines, basically, the lines on the spear. So one's going to come out from here, one's going to come out from here, one's going to come out from here, and one's going to come out from here. You want to be positioning yourself so you don't have to move as much for those. So I should be a little bit back now because there's going to be one coming out of here, one coming out of here that is going to wreck us. And the more spears you get over the ground, obviously, the more lines that you're having to dodge. So just be aware of that as the tank. Don't be afraid to move to new areas if you need to as well. Don't feel like you have to stay in this one little zone, but make sure that you kill them basically at the same time. You have, once one hits 0%, you have, if you've engaged another one, you have 5 seconds basically to kill the other one before it goes back to 100% HP, and you've just wasted all of that time and probably all your CDs. So we've killed the 2 there, and then we're going into the last one, which is Clothos. Now, again, if you had a Kyrian in your group, this is where you would spear. If it was fortified, I would be busting out Hero as well. Even if it's not fortified and you're worried about it, don't be afraid to bust out Hero as well. So here is Clothos. Again, there's a lot going on here. You've got the charged spears to dodge from. You've got the oppression dot as well. You've also got the other dot that I didn't mention, which is intimidate as well, which is the one you can actually drop. Sorry, it's not oppression. You can't drop. It's intimidate, which is a magic dot that ticks on you. You can actually end up dropping that with meld. So if you had a druid in your group that could drop trees, you could shadow meld it as the tank if you're Alliance and a night elf. Otherwise, as I said, feign death, vanish, anything you can do to reduce those stacks is absolutely warranted because it really does end up owning. And again, just watch out for these spears, but burn him down as quick as you can. Clothos is a giant pain in the ass. So we're going to kill Clothos. Poor Sail ends up eating shit, unfortunately. We're going to res, and then we've got plenty of time to do this last boss because we've still got Hero, and we've got like 6.5 minutes now. Remember, we skipped Sogadon and we skipped Cold Heart. So we're going to have 50% reduced movement speed, and we are also going to have the boss dealing larger physical damage. So that means Devos's charge through will absolutely fuck you up if you get hit by it. So don't get hit by it. And just make sure that you are giving yourself enough time to move because you've got the Chilling Presence, which is that 50% reduced movement speed. But remember, if you've got mobile classes, your soul shape's still going to work. Your dash, your stampeding roar, your death advance, your roll, your blinks, all that kind of stuff, your fell rushes is all still going to work. So you've got those abilities. Abyssal Detonation going off there. We were all standing in the shield. You can also see the lost confidence. When that gets dispelled or it expires, it leaves a black circle on the ground. Just don't put it in the middle of your safety circle so people don't have to worry about standing it. Try and bait it out on the edges for when you're going to get dispelled or when it's going to drop. Abyssal Detonation going off, we're standing in the shield. Devos being in the shield doesn't reduce any damage that Devos is taking either. Don't feel like you have to position on the outside of the shield or anything like that. You can have Devos standing firmly, smack bang in the middle of the shield, and Devos will take just as much damage, so don't worry about that. Devos going off to activate here. You can get a few more seconds of DPS into the boss while this is happening, so make the most of that. Then we're going to run off and we're going to grab all our orbs here. So just try and find a spot for all the orbs. Try and avoid running through the black pools if you can, as it leaves quite a nasty dot on you. And then make sure with the Devos, if you can keep an eye on Devos while she's in the sky, try and see when she moved last. If she's just moved and you've clicked the spear, you're right to throw straight away. If you haven't been keeping an eye on it, it is generally safer to wait for Devos to move and then spear and throw rather than miss. Here comes run through. Cat gets hit. Fat. So we're going to res cat because we've still got 2 available, so that's fine. Just really watch out for that run through. As I said, if you skip Sogadon, that run through will all but one-shot you easily. I think on Tyrannical it'll go close to one-shotting you regardless, but skipping Sogadon definitely makes the boss going to hit harder with your physical abilities. So, you know, the run through is really going to cork you there. So moving Devos back into the shield here. Bissell detonation going off, making sure everyone gets in, which can get pretty hairy with the chilling presence. So again, try and stay when that shield goes up, start moving towards it if you've elected to skip Cold Heart. We're going to get another phase in the air here, so I'm just going to try and skip through all of this. Sorry. So we're going to get eventually. There's going to be another phase in the air here. So here we go here, collecting our orbs. If you've got a priest in your group as well, and people are getting the dot on them as well, you can stack up at this spear bit here. When the tank goes to throw the spear, you can have your priest drop a master spell to get rid of all those dots as well. So be making the most out of the toolkit there. Throwing the spear into that one. Devos comes down for the final phase, and basically it's just a rinse repeat. And you can see Gilly ended up master spelling there because we've only got 1 stack of that lingering doubt there, where I think we're all at 9. So it's, you know, it's a huge advantage to having a priest dodging that run through there. And then we're just going to finish up the boss. And that is pretty much it, guys. So hopefully that helps. Any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Good luck getting your KSM. Good luck getting your portals. Any questions, hit me up. See you all next time. See you, fam.